Rick Gladiator was an adventurer who underwent training in the recognized strongest party called Orichalcum Fist. But even though he was already 32 years old, he was still an F rank because he was 30 years old when he registered to become an adventurer. 2 years had passed since he registered, and he was eligible to take the promotion exam for the E rank. On the day of the exam, he met Elisa, who had worked with him when he was a receptionist in another guild branch. While they were talking, a drunken adventurer approached Elisa to ask her out. This man kept on insisting, so Rick saved her and put the man to sleep by simply patting his chest. He just said that the man might have drank too much, and after he gave advice to Elisa, he received the exam ticket with the examining number of bad luck. When he came out, Rionette immediately noticed the worry on his face. While inside the guild, the other adventurers noticed what Rick really did. Soon the promotion exam began. As their mana was being measured, Rick had a score of F-. For this reason, the other people laughed at him, but after a while, the crystal ball suddenly broke. The next thing to measure was their offensive ability using the slime bag, and Rick suddenly remembered the days of his training with Broughston. The second son of the Diarmut family, named Freed, took advantage of this opportunity to show off. But the pyro magic that he performed was very different from what Rick always saw in the Lisseret. When his name was called, the instructor belittled him because of his age and the result of his mana. He was advised to give up being an adventurer, however, this words gave him motivation to show what he got. So he made his punch on the slime bag even stronger, causing everyone to be shocked. Despite what they saw, Freed thought that he would probably excel in defense magic because this was his specialty. But even in that test, it was Rick who still got everyone's attention because his defense was so strong even though he only used the first nature magic. The first rank knight of the Royal Knights, named Sylvester, noticed the loud explosion from where they were. When he came there, he found the instructor who became weak after the severe attack he had done on Rick. While in the written exam, Rick used his 14 years of knowledge as a receptionist, and he was confident that all his answers were correct. While he and Rionette were talking about what happened in the exam, Freed approached them and confronted Rick. Rick thought that he was just a lost child and looking for his parents, so Freed suddenly started crying. That was when Freed's sister, named Angelica, or the first daughter of the Diarmut family, approached them. She challenged Rick to a duel, and although Rick did not want to do it, he did not know that picking up the challenger's glove was a proof that he accepted the challenge. When he learned about it, he could do nothing but answer to her demand. Angelica introduced herself as a second-class knight of the Royal Knights, so they thought that she was on the same level as B-rank adventurer. Angelica wanted that if she won, she would make Rick as her slave for life. Rick was worried that he might just die in their duel, so Rionette reminded him of the training he did for 2 years. After hearing this, his nervousness disappeared and they started their duel. Angelica was known for her speed, but when she rushed at him, Rick was surprised that she was so slow. He thought that even his normal running speed was faster than her, that's why he managed to avoid it. Angelica thought that Rick was just lucky, so he rushed again, but she just fell over the rock. Then she decided to use his blink step Loda, which was 3 times faster compared to her previous attack. But Rick found her attack as slow and could still avoid her. Even though Angelica knew that she could only use the Loda twice, she tried it again, but she still failed to hit her opponent. When she rushed again, she was lucky when she tripped her feet because this time, Rick retaliated. Rick's blow was so strong that Angelica thought that she might have been crushed if she did not accidentally fell down. Because of fear, she was forced to surrender and thought of a reason for him not to notice her nervousness. She was about to leave when Rick remembered their agreement. Sash ran away from him, and this was faster than her Loda technique. After that, Rionette informed Rick that Broughston and the others were coming to watch his next exams. Soon, the passers in the first round of the exam were announced, and Rick managed to pass. When they left the room, an adventurer approached Rionette, who introduced himself as Raster Diarmut. He offered Rionette to be his second wife, but Rick intervened to tell Raster that she was his girlfriend. When Raster found out that Rick was applying for the E-rank promotion, he introduced himself as an A-rank adventurer and one of the examiners of the second stage exam. Then he asked Rionette about his offer again, but she rejected him and told him that she and Rick were already engaged. After hearing this, Raster got angry and warned Rick that if he became his examiner, he would surely make him suffer. The night came and Raster still could not accept that a woman rejected him. Suddenly, Angelica and Fried, who happened to be his siblings, came to report to him about the humiliation they suffered from Rick. When Raster found out who they were referring to, he became more intrigued in Rick. When the day came for the second round of the exam, Rick could not help but worry that Raster might become his examiner. They met an examiner who introduced himself as Lynx Laurat, who said that he would be his examiner. Upon hearing this, Rick was happy that a different examiner was assigned to him. It turned out that he admired Rick's determination to fulfill his dream of becoming an adventurer despite his age. He understood Rick's situation because they were almost in the same situation. They had no idea that Raster was not far away and had been listening to their conversation. When their conversation was over, Raster decided to talk to Lynx. Before the exam started, it was announced to Rick that Lynx would no longer be their examiner because he was sick, and they were told that he was replaced by Raster. This was when Rick found out that Angelica and Fried were Raster's siblings. The other adventurers were already worried because Raster was known to be merciless to the examinees in every exam. At that moment, Raster was planning something else so Rick would not be able to attend the exam. While Rick was waiting for his number to be called, someone approached them who introduced himself as a fortune teller. He wanted to see Rick's fortune, and since there was nothing to lose, Rick agreed. But when he was about to sit down, the chair turned out to have teleportation magic, and when Rionette noticed it, it was too late. The fortune teller turned out to be Fried, and in Rionette's anger, she immediately asked him where he took Rick. Out of fear, Fried said that Rick was only nearby because he could not take him far from there. Rick was teleported outside the venue, and after a while, he was approached by the elite guards of the Diarmut family. Their strength was equal to rank B and rank A, so Rick thought that this might be the end of him. But before they could attack him, Broughston and the others suddenly came. They wondered why Rick was there and Rionette was not with him, so Rick tried to explain to them that he was just warming up. Rick even tried to tell the enemies to get away from there because he knew what might happen to them. But they did not listen to him and attacked Broughston. Because of what the enemies did, Mazette also took this opportunity to use his new invention against them. The others even tried to take Elisarette as hostage, but they did not expect that she would show her strength. This was when the leader of the elite guards realized that they were the famous Orichalcum Fist, a group of S-rank adventurers. Fried thought that Rick would not be able to come back, but he was shocked when Rick suddenly showed up and was not even harmed. So Rionette threw Fried away because he was no longer useful. A few moments later, Lynx came who was full of bruises. He said that Raster beat him, so he advised Rick to withdraw from the exam because he was worried that Raster might do something to him too. Because of what happened to Lynx, Rick had more reason to defeat Raster. He would make sure that Raster would pay for all the things he did to them. When Rionette came to the bench, Elisa spoke to her because she had seen her with Rick the other day. After they introduced to each other, Rionette was called by Elisarette, who was sitting not far away. A few moments later, Rick entered the arena for the mock battle against Raster. When they started, Raster used an ice shot to try to scare Rick. Rick could still feel his anger towards his opponent, but he remembered Rionette's advice to him so that he could calm himself down. Raster attacked again with Flame Illuminate, but Rick just blocked it with his body. Raster just continued to attack, but Broughston and others were not bothered because they had trained Rick's body. Rick did not have the chance to develop his magic reserves, which should be done before a person reached the age of 20 years. This was the reason why his magic reserves were limited. So what they did was focus on the remaining 3 foundational faculties. Since Raster's attacks would not go through Rick, Raster tried to rush at his opponent, but it was countered. When Rick suddenly attacked, Raster quickly made an iron body. This was when Raster realized that Rick was indeed stronger compared to the E-rank adventurers. He asked Rick what motivated him to become stronger. Rick immediately answered, and it was to defeat the strongest monster, called Kaiser El-Sapiat. But Fried and Raster just laughed at him because the monster he mentioned was the same monster in the legends of the hero Yamato. Broughston also said that this was also the ultimate goal of the Orichalcum Fist. As the fight continued, Raster decided to end their fight, so he used his killer move. When he attacked with Yggdrasil God Impact, Rick just hit it with his level 1 air shot. Raster thought he won the fight, but he was surprised when his armor was destroyed first. Because of this, Rick was able to defeat him, causing the other viewers to be shocked. After a few hours, the numbers of those who passed the exam were announced. While Rick was waiting for his number to be called, he remembered his past again. Since he was young, he dreamed of being an adventurer because he wanted to become like Yamato. One day when he went for a checkup, the doctor found a marker that was rarely found, and it just meant that he had an inborn skill. This made him very happy that he might have the same power as Yamato. But after a few years, he still had not released his power. Until he finished his studies, so he decided to follow his parents' wishes and look for a stable job. He was accepted as a receptionist at the Tiger Road Guild, but he still had not given up that one day he would be able to show his power. A few years later, he worked with Elisa and he sometimes helped her. One day, his adventurer friend Geith visited him to brag that he was already B-rank adventurer. When he saw the badge, he thought that he could no longer fulfill his dream and felt disappointed. While he was thinking about being an adventurer, he suddenly heard a cry that there was a monster. It turned out to be a vengeful troll, and he wondered how it got there. Rionette suddenly passed in front of him, so he quickly went to protect her. He did not know that she was an adventurer and was shocked at her abilities. He decided to go with her first, then he found out that she was an S-rank adventurer. Rionette was surprised when he told her his dream to become an adventurer and defeat Kaiser El Sapiat. He asked her if he could still be an adventurer even though he was 30 years old. Although he impressed Rionette with his bravery earlier, she frankly answered him that he could not do it anymore because it would be difficult for him to develop his magical reserves at his age. Even though it was painful for him, he showed that it was fine to him and even thanked Rionette. Then he invited her to have dinner one day, and he did not expect her to accept it. They decided to do it the next day, and this was the reason why Rick was in a good mood while he was at work. By nightfall, as he was going to the place where he and Rionette would meet, many monsters suddenly appeared. In the distance, he saw Rionette fighting the monsters. More monsters came, but Rionette eliminated them effortlessly. But after a while, she suddenly felt the presence of a dragon in the distance. Because of her trauma from the past, she could not help but weaken every time she could see a dragon. Fortunately, Geith with his companions came to help them. After Rionette prepared Rick for the incoming dragon, the creature appeared to them. They even tried to run away, but it quickly created a barrier. Since there was a high possibility that they would die there, Rick decided to fight the dragon. He said that if he died, he wanted to die as an adventurer. Because of the bravery he showed, the others decided to fight the dragon as well. But the dragon was so strong that their attacks did not even work against it. Despite that, Rick did not give up easily, so the dragon attacked him again. That was when he suddenly released his inborn skill that gave him so much strength. Apart from this, his companions could also see the overflowing magic that surrounded his body. When the dragon attacked again, he killed it using the skill he had acquired. But after that, he suddenly lost consciousness due to extreme weakness. He regained consciousness a week later, but he could still feel the pain in his body. Rionette had been watching him for a week because she wanted to invite him to join the Orichalcum fist. His dream of defeating Kaiser El Sapiat was also the main goal of their party. This time Rionette made sure that he would be able to become an adventurer. He was so happy after hearing Rionette's words that he did not hesitate to accept her offer. He successfully passed the promotion exam, so he was now a full E-rank adventurer. One day, Rick visited Lynx, and since he was about to be discharged, he wanted to have a drink with Rick. But he wanted to do it at Rick's place because he was interested to meet their party. Even though Rick knew the possibilities of what might happen to Lynx, he did not stop him, but he advised Lynx to use the best armor he got. By this day, Lynx arrived safely at their castle because there were no monsters outside, so he wondered why he was made to wear his best equipment. He had no idea that the ones who would give him trouble were the members of the Orichalcum Fist. When he talked to Broughston, he took the opportunity to learn from him. He wanted to be strong like Rick, but he did not expect that he would suffer like hell. So by afternoon, he could hardly move his entire body. After they ate, Broughston took the opportunity to ask Lynx about the 6 magic stones which could also be read in the legends of Hero Yamato. They thought that he might know something because he worked at the Central. This was when Lynx found out that the purpose of the Orichalcum fist was to defeat Kaiser El Sapiat. These magic stones would be used to open the door to the source spiral where Kaiser El Sapiat was located. Although Lynx could not answer anything at the moment, he promised to try and check the confidential department. When they had information about the whereabouts of one of the magic stones, they immediately went to the guild to get the request job related to it. But the guild master did not allow them because there were only 3 of them. It was necessary that there had to be 2A rank and must consist of 4 members in the party. When the guild master noticed Ray, he immediately forced her to join Rick's group so they could do the task. When they got close to the place, Ray was surprised when they saw a wyvern. Broughston quickly defeated it, but Ray became so worried because more wyverns would surely come to them. For this reason, Broughston instructed Rick to take Ray away so she would not disturb them. While they were busy fighting the wyverns, a big red wyvern suddenly attacked Rick. Rick told Ray to run as fast as she could, and he would take care of the creature. But Ray refused to leave him because they were a party, and she knew that Yamato would not do the same. Rick agreed to let her stay and served as his backup, but as she was preparing, he just easily defeated the wyvern. They successfully obtained a magic stone, and through this, they would know the whereabouts of other magic stones. Mazette used it in earth mapping, and they saw that a magic stone was in the kingdom of Heractopia. This kingdom was known for their King of Fists tournament, which was started by their 4th king, named Alexander Heractopia. Every year, many would come from different continents to participate in the competition. Fighters who participated in the competition were called pugilists. Rick and his companions immediately went there to find the magic stone. While they were looking for someone to help them get direction, they noticed a woman who was being forced to go with a man. Broughston took the opportunity to ask them, but he was only challenged to a fist fight by the man. For this reason, the man was beaten and he was forced to answer their questions. He introduced himself as Gold while the woman introduced herself as Militia. When Rick showed the magic stone, the item seemed familiar to Gold and Militia, but they forgot where they saw it. A few moments later, the parade started for the King of Fists tournament. When they saw the champion, named Kerwin Erwolf, that was when they noticed the magic stone on his champion belt. After the parade, they did not waste any more time and immediately talked to Kerwin. Kerwin immediately felt that they were not ordinary people, especially when Broughston entered. Broughston directly said that they wanted to get the magic stone that was in the champion belt. He added that this magic stone belonged to their former member. The gym owner thought that Broughston was just lying, but Kerwin could smell that he was telling the truth. However, he would not just give it away because it was important to the people of Heractopia. He said that if they wanted to get it, they had to win the King of Fists tournament. Broughston immediately understood what Kerwin meant and they left. The owner wanted to have their men beat Rick's group, but Kerwin knew that if they did it, they would be dead for sure. He could feel the intense power that flows through them, especially on Broughston. Broughston decided that they had to become pugilists in order for them to participate in the tournament. But they must pass the preliminaries that would be conducted in the eastern and western parts of the kingdom. Broughston left the west side to Rick and he decided to join the east side. Gold suddenly arrived with a carriage for Broughston to ride in order to reach the east side. After Broughston left, Rick also started to register as a pugilist. To pass this, he had to undergo a physical mock battle. When he entered the arena, he was surprised that his opponent was Angelica. Even Angelica could not believe that he was there. Angelica was expecting an easy fight, but it may not happen because her opponent was Rick, who defeated her A-rank brother. When they started, Rick used the new skill he learned. Even though Angelica tried to retaliate, she constantly failed because she could not see Rick's attacks. After a few moments, Rick thought of taking the fight seriously, but Angelica was forced to give up. When they left the arena, Angelica confronted Rick because of annoyance that he always defeated her. When she started crying, Rick thought that she might be hungry, so he took her to the restaurant owned by Militia. Rick did not expect that a knight like Angelica thought of becoming a pugilist who was not allowed to use a sword. Angelica explained that she had her own reasons, and no matter what happened, she had to enter the King of Fists tournament. When she found out that Rick would join the same year, she was surprised because he might not be able to do it in just 1 week. He still needed to win 40 different battles, which seemed impossible to accomplish in limited time. Angelica was shocked when she found out that Rick requested 10 matches in just one day, so he would only need 4 days to complete the 40 matches. For his first fight, he fought Grit, who was known to cheat because he used a weapon. It turned out that he was using an impact stone to make his punch stronger. When he attacked Rick, he thought that he was the winner, but he was surprised to see the damage on his hand. When Rick retaliated against him, he did not purposely hit his opponent and just put Grit to sleep. Angelica had also successfully completed 40 matches with a winning streak, so she managed to enter the Block League. While Rick was on his way to his second match, Angelica still did not want to believe that Rick could finish 40 matches in just 4 days. She knew that Rick could only do one match in one venue, and the distance between each venue was also far. But this was not a problem for Rick because he could just run to reach them no matter how far it was. Since Angelica wanted to watch Rick's fights, Rionette decided to take her with her. Unfortunately, she could not watch him because of dizziness. They just kept doing this for 4 days until Rick completed his 40 wins. One day, while Rionette and Angelica were having coffee, Angelica found out that Broughston would also join the tournament. Since he was an S-rank adventurer, she felt hopeless to win the fight. After a while, a waiter came to them and begged the girls if they could work for a part-time job in the cafe. A few hours later, after Rick's exercise, he was approached by the chairman of the Western League's management committee, named Snape. Rick got his attention because Rick was the fastest qualifier in the history of the tournament. A few moments later, Snape's assistant came to inform him that Angelica was not inside. Because of this, Rick found out that Snape and Angelica knew each other. Snape did not prolong their conversation and requested to let Angelica know that he came. When Rick entered the restaurant, Militia immediately spoke to him because she was worried that he and Snape had talked. He found out about the company run by Snape called the Dragonaut Company, and it was the sponsor of the tournament. They had a sponsor slot and could choose a pugilist whom they could enlist in the tournament. Meanwhile, Angelica and Rionette started working as part-timers after they accepted the offer at the cafe. But a drunk came to touch Angelica, and in her anger, she beat him mercilessly. The next day while they were having breakfast, Rick mentioned Snape to Angelica. Angelica suddenly stopped eating, and she denied that she knew Snape. A few days later, the Block League competition started. Angelica fought in the first round against Helen Thompson, whom she quickly defeated. However, they noticed that she could not focus on her fight. When Rick joined in the arena, he quickly defeated his opponent. They won consecutively until Angelica faced Taylor, where she had difficulty because of his fighting style. As she wanted the fight to end immediately, this gave Taylor a chance to hit her with his strong punch. For this reason, she was not able to get up, causing her to lose the match. When she got out of the infirmary, Rick tried to talk to her. She did not want to talk, but Rick just continued to follow her. Because of this, she was forced to tell him about her relationship with Snape. Snape was her fiancé, and the arranged marriage was agreed in the previous year. After their parents died, their grandfather made a deal with Snape so they could get out of their financial problems. However, she was determined to find a way to prevent their marriage from happening. After a while, they suddenly heard that there was a commotion going on in a bar. They saw Taylor trying to save the bar employee. Angelica immediately recognized Taylor's opponent because it turned out to be Geith, who was Snape's brother. After Geith knocked Taylor down, Angelica dared to face him. He tried to attack her, but Rick immediately moved to stop him. That was the moment when Snape arrived and immediately asked Geith to get out of there. Rick also found out that Geith was the one whom Snape chose to compete in the tournament. When Snape was sure that Angelica was okay, he also left. Rick learned from Angelica that Snape was planning to use the tournament to raise money. In order to do this, their team must win, and this was the reason why he sponsored the tournament. So Angelica would do everything to prevent this from happening, and she also wanted to stop their marriage. However, she admitted that even if she entered the tournament, she might not be able to beat Geith. Because of this, Rick offered her to undergo training. Even though she knew that her life might be in danger, she still agreed to her desire to get stronger. And she was not mistaken in what she expected because the training was so hard and she felt like she's going to die. On the 5th day of their training, Rick decided to involve Rionette. He told her that Rionette would be the one who would train Angelica. During the match, Angelica fought the one who had one loss similar to her during the final match in Block C, but because Angelica had just come from intense training, she quickly defeated her opponent. After winning her fights, she also successfully entered the tournament like Rick. They had dinner at Melicia's restaurant, and after a while, Alyssa had arrived because she wanted to watch the tournament. When the day of the tournament came, Angelica immediately noticed that Snape's group was starting their plan in fixing matches. They list Geith's name in the other bracket, so he would not fight Broughston and Kerwin in the first round. Although Angelica would immediately fight Geith in the second round, she still remained positive because this was what she was waiting for. In the first match, Herman Mueller and Geith fought. This fight easily ended, but they were already expecting it to happen. Rick and his companions' first matches had ended easily too. For the last match in the first round, Eddie Grace and Kerwin faced each other. Rick noticed that Kerwin's speed of reaction was not the reason why he was able to dodge and hit his opponent. Broughston thought that it might be because of his sense of smell, which made it possible for him to immediately knew what the enemy would do. If this ability was given a name, it could be called future scenting. Just a few moments later, Kerwin was also knocked down by his opponent, but they knew that he only let Eddie hit him. When Eddie attacked again, that was when Kerwin decided to end their fight with a strong punch. The next day before Angelica and Geith's fight started in the second round, Snape decided to sit beside Rick. He said that he wanted to watch the fight closely because his younger brother and fiancé will be fighting. When the fight started, Angelica attacked first, but it did not work against her opponent. For this reason, she immediately decided to use what she learned from Rionette. She attacked again with a thread slash, and this time, she managed to injure Geith. She did it repeatedly until Geith got annoyed and made a counterattack. He also used his speed so that he could crush Angelica. When Angelica got up, she tried to attack again, but she could not hit him, and even her flickering was imitated by Geith. At this moment, Angelica was unable to avoid Geith's attacks. Geith was about to kill Angelica, but Rick threw a shoe at him. Geith's win was immediately announced so that he would no longer endanger Angelica's life. When Rick was heading inside the arena, he met Geith, who was carrying his shoe. Geith wanted revenge for what Rick did, but Rick just avoided his attack. Rick did not want to fight with him because he preferred that the viewers would see how he would crush Geith in their fight. Then he quickly defeated his opponent with just one punch. Even Broughston did the same to defeat his opponent. Kerwin also won in this round, so the four of them entered the semifinals. The next morning, Rick and Geith faced each other to the semifinal round. Geith was so complacent that he would win, but did not expect the strength of Rick's punch. He tried to retaliate but was only countered by Rick's through attack. Because of this, he was forced to use the Dragon Force, causing him to speed up and harden his skin. But Broughston noticed that what he did consumed a lot of magical energy. After Geith's series of attacks, he and Snape thought that Rick's defeat was certain. But this was not what was in Broughston's mind, until Geith realized that he had not seen Rick bleeding even though he had received multiple attacks. It turned out that Rick was using a technique called flowing strikes. Geith used an iron body, but it did not protect him from Rick's through attack. So he decided to release his true strength called the Dragon Rickergen. Although it gave extra speed and strength to his body, he still could not match Rick's speed and strength. Rick showed his speed, that's why it was hard for Geith to see him. Angelica knew that it was flickering feet, so she realized that Rick was showing her that she could be this strong if she continued her training for a year. Geith tried to keep up, but he failed to avoid the thread slash of Rick. Because of this, Rick was declared the winner and the first contestant to enter the final round. Due to Geith's defeat, Snape would not be able to continue his marriage with Angelica. He regretted a lot because he had long dreamed of marrying someone like her. For the next semi-final match, Broughston and Kerwin would face each other. When their fight started, Kerwin immediately attacked to test Broughston's strength. But Geith suddenly entered the arena and attacked the spectators. Kerwin was pissed on what Geith did during his match, so he took his attention. When Geith attacked, Kerwin easily blocked him and gave him a strong punch, causing Geith to lose consciousness again. Due to the number of wounded people, they decided to continue the match between Broughston and Kerwin the next day. Kerwin did not expect that Broughston would notice that he was holding back on his attacks. In the afternoon, while the girls were eating their meal, Rick decided to go jogging. When he went to Claristia, he saw Kerwin on his training. Since the fight between was postponed earlier, Kerwin took advantage of this opportunity to make Rick a sparring partner. Just like Broughston, Rick also immediately noticed that Kerwin seemed to be holding back in his attack. He thought that Kerwin's sense of smell was not working properly, which Kerwin denied. Kerwin told him his reason and said that he could quickly defeat his opponents in the tournament. Until one night, he overheard his boss talking to one of his staff because the number of viewers was diminishing. The viewers were no longer excited to watch because his opponents were always defeated with just one punch. So by the next tournament he intended to lose in the fight. He became champion again the very next year, but this time, he was holding back so the fight would not end immediately. After talking with Kerwin, Rick did not stay long and he immediately returned to his companions. The next day, a defensive magic was placed in the arena for the safety of the spectators. When the match started, Kerwin was still the first to attack, but Broughston noticed that he was doing the same thing as yesterday. Although he knew how strong Broughston was, he still could not bring out his true strength because the viewers would know that he just faked the strength he showed in previous tournaments. Broughston understood his concern, so he told Kerwin that he would only use 2 fingers in the fight and he would not leave his position. When Kerwin attacked again, he was surprised that Broughston was able to parry his attacks. He thought that their fight would have been better if he could unleash his true strength. At that moment, his boss yelled at him because he knew that Kerwin was holding back even in the previous fights. He told Kerwin to show his true strength because his dream was to train the strongest of all and he wanted him to be the strongest. Because of what his boss said, Kerwin decided to unleash his true strength. So when he attacked again, Broughston used 5 fingers because he knew how strong the blow was. Due to the strength that he was showing, the spectators gradually noticed that this was not what they had seen in previous tournaments. Kerwin could not back down, so he just continued what he was doing. He unleashed a variety of powerful attacks, but Broughston was still able to block all of them. Until he used the Angel's Tear, causing Rick to worry. It was not Kerwin's attack that worried Rick, but Broughston's decision to release his true strength to counter the Angel's Tear. Due to Kerwin's attack, Broughston gave a quarter thumbs up, signaling that he would be the one to attack next. So Kerwin also felt his scary aura. In the first blow, Kerwin was thrown away even though it was only a shockwave that hit him. As Broughston approached him, Kerwin repeatedly attacked him, but Broughston did not even mind it. Kerwin was surprised that his opponent was already in front of him, causing him to be crushed by its attack. Even though he was running out of mana, he still insisted on fighting his opponent and rushed at Broughston again using his remaining stamina. But soon he ran out of strength, so he fell down again. This was when the spectators shouted to support him. To show his gratitude for their support, he gathered his remaining strength and used the Spiral Boundary Fist. However, he had not able to defeat Broughston. Since Kerwin had exhausted his strength, Broughston decided to end their fight. After Broughston's win, the champion belt was within their reach, so Rick thought that he could withdraw from the tournament. But Broughston told Rick that he wanted him to fight in the final round. After hearing this, Rick's hair kept falling out of worry. So the next morning, he decided to lock himself in his room because he did not want to fight Broughston. Snape tried to plead for him to continue the fight, but it did not work either. Angelica was so disappointed with him that she also followed Snape and left. That was when Mazette said what Broughston had planned in his training. Apart from preparing for their fight with Kaiser Alsapiet, Broughston had another plan. He wanted to train someone to match his strength. When Mazette and Elissaret came down, they talked to Angelica. It was about the training that Rick went through, and even they themselves could not believe that Rick was able to survive his hellish training under Broughston. Angelica suddenly felt sorry because even though Rick had no skills, he still continued to be an adventurer despite his age. Elissaret said that Rick had a skill, but there was a trick on how to activate it. Angelica was surprised because she thought that Rick really had no skills. Rionette tried to talk to Rick but not to force him to fight Broughston. In the end, Rick decided to fight because of what he learned from Mazette. The next day before the match started, the girls talked to Rick. Angelica thought that he was okay, but the nervousness he felt was still obvious on his face. Rionette just heard about the prize of the champion and it included 2 tickets for the hot springs trip. So Rionette told Rick that if he won, she would accompany him to the hot springs. When Rick heard this, he was immediately motivated to face his opponent. When the fight started, he immediately attacked first. Because of the power of his attack, he was able to injure Broughston using the thread slash. He just continued his attack until he had another chance to use a thread slash. Since Broughston could see Rick's determination to fight him, he also decided to attack. He attacked one after the other to distract Rick, but Rick quickly used an air cushion. But what surprised Kerwin more was that Rick did not have to say the air cushion to activate it. They continued to exchange powerful attacks until Rick had a chance to use an air shot. However, it was not enough to knock Broughston down. Broughston thought of taking this opportunity to tell Rick about the past that had to do with their party, the Orichalcum Fist. 46 years ago when he was 5 years old, he saw that he was different from his peers. He learned to read and write, so like the people he named himself Broughston. He was so strong that no one could beat him in a fight. As he learned a lot, he also taught his people until the day came when they worshipped him like a god. But this condition brought him to a life where he felt alone. One day they were ravaged by a strong storm which caused the death of the rest of his race. He continued to live alone until one night he was suddenly attacked by the adventurer named Reinhard. He would have wanted to kill Broughston, but Reinhard observed that he was a strange orc, so he became interested in him. They had a conversation until Reinhard decided to offer Broughston to come with him to fulfill their dream. Reinhard said that he used to be with the hero Yamato, so Broughston remembered the book he read. That was when he found out that Reinhard was the author of this book. So he also realized that the dream he was referring to was to defeat Kaiser El Sapiat. Since he thought that he would enjoy this challenge, he accepted the offer. They formed the Orichalcum Fist, and as time passed, they found new members with extreme powers. But he had not been able to fight like his people do. So he made a plan for his future student that he would train, and he aimed that this person would have the same strength as him. And when Rick came to their party, he did not miss the opportunity. After Rick heard Broughston's story, he also signaled a quarter thumbs up to let Broughston know that he was ready to give his all in the fight. As their fight continued, they did nothing but throw heavy punches. Mazette noticed that the arena was no longer safe for the onlookers, so he asked Elisarette for magic so he could teleport the people out of the arena. A few moments later, the magical barrier was completely destroyed while the spectators were surprised that they were already outside the arena. Angelica noticed that Rick could hit his opponent with more punches, but based on the strength of the attacks, Broughston's punches were much stronger. Soon Rick was hit with one of Broughston's strongest punches. Angelica thought the fight was over, but according to Rionette, Rick was not done yet. In Rick's desire to repay the debt he owed to Broughston, this was the moment when he released his inborn skill called Reckless Soul. Mazette just laughed at Broughston's reaction because they secretly trained Rick so he could learn how to activate his inborn skill. Their fight continued again, and because of Rick's strength, Broughston was also feeling weak. It was only a matter of time before they both decided to pour all their strength into their last attack. After they did it, Rick fell first, but Broughston also fell a few moments later. 3 days passed before Rick regained consciousness. For Broughston, Rick was the one who won in their match, so received the champion belt. Broughston was also extremely grateful to his companions for secretly helping him fulfill his long-held dream. They wasted no more time and immediately removed the magical stone from the champion belt. They replaced it with a new gemstone so that Heractopia could continue their King of Fists tournament. Rick suddenly asked Broughston how old Reinhard if he was able to be with Yamato, who was over 200 years old when he was alive. Broughston could not tell Reinhard's exact age, and all he knew was that his inborn skill could prolong his life. After they returned the championship belt to Snape, he immediately went to Kerwin to return the belt because Rick and his companions had already cancelled their registration as pugilists. While Rick and the others were getting ready to go home, they found out that Angelica would also undergo training with Broughston. Angelica promised that one day she would also be able to surpass Rick. This is the end of the last episode of the Ossan Newbie Adventurer Season 1. I hope you like it, and give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel so you won't miss newly uploaded videos. Thank you for supporting this channel.